On May 12th, GQ magazine published a piece on Robert Pattinson, star of Chris Nolan's Tenet, and after that, Matt Reeves' Batman, which is currently not shooting as it got locked down in the middle of production. During the lockdown, Pattinson did find the time to do a bunch of sponsored selfies for GQ magazine, but he did not find the time, or rather, he did not find the motivation to work out, despite repeated requests from his personal trainer that he do so. Why? Why wouldn't he get fit for Batman? Well, because according to him, James Dean didn't have to work out, so why should he? This has stirred a lot of reactions, but is there more to this than meets the eye? Could it be that we are all being, for lack of a more appropriate term, played by Warner's marketing department? That's what I'm inclined to believe. In this editorial, I will begin by going through what Pattinson said and explore the fallacy of his James Dean argument. Then I'll share my thoughts on what I think really might be going on here, and what narrative Warner's marketing department may be trying to push to coincide with Tenet and Matt Reeves' Batman. The GQ article reads, "The film studio hired a trainer who left Pattinson with a Bosu ball, a single weight, and a sincere plea to use both, but right now he says he's ignoring her. I think if you're working out all the time, you're part of the problem," he says, sighing. By you, he means other actors. "You set a precedent. No one was doing this in the 70s. Even James Dean, he wasn't exactly ripped." He says that back when he was the star of the Twilight franchise, "The one time they told me to take my shirt off, I think they told me to put it back on again. But Batman is Batman." Pattinson called another actor in the film, Zoe Kravitz, the other day, and she said she was exercising 5 days a week during their exile from set. Pattinson? "Well, literally, I'm just barely doing anything," he says, sighing again. Before we move on, let me emphasize something that many seem to have missed. This whole article is a paid-for puff piece, courtesy of Warner. Warner is the distributor of both the upcoming Tenet and Batman, and I assure you, every last word in this article has been cleared by Warner Marketing. Pattinson even says he had received 3 calls to remind him of this very interview, and a maximum of 1 of those was from GQ. You can rest assured that no one in Warner are sweating about Pattinson speaking out of turn here. On the contrary, this is the story they want out there. So, let's explore that story. Robert Pattinson expresses the opinion that actors working out all the time is bad, because it sets a precedent that other actors should do this as well. So, Christian Bale and Ben Affleck, the 2 previous Batman actors that actually did transform their bodies for the role, know that Robert Pattinson does not approve of your commitment to the role. He does not approve because since you packed on the muscle mass, he is expected to do the same, and Robert Pattinson will do no such thing. Why? Because they didn't do this back in the 70s, let alone back in the 50s, which was when James Dean was active. James Dean was an icon and he wasn't ripped. And that's who Robert Pattinson and his agency wants you to associate him with, a modern-day James Dean. That association matters, even if James Dean lived in a different world and the workout comparison is utterly nonsensical for that reason. Robert Pattinson won't tell you this, but the reason he brings up the 70s is that that was the last decade in which action heroes could get away with not bulking up. And that decade ended 40 years ago. Pattinson wasn't there in the 70s, nor was I for that matter, but Arnold Schwarzenegger was, and he spoke about this very topic in his biography, Total Recall. According to him, hitting the gym was indeed something the stars of the 70s increasingly did. But they wouldn't admit that they did, because there was still stigma attached to it. Pumping iron was, literally, seen as gay. Schwarzenegger wrote that the action heroes of the day, like Clint Eastwood, were expected to be fit and strong, stronger than their fellow man. But this strength was expected to be innate, which was part of the appeal of the contemporary action hero. They didn't work for it, they just innately were better and stronger than their fellow man. And so, the likes of Clint Eastwood would pretend that their strength and build was innate, but behind closed doors, Even the stars of the 70s would lift some weights to help nature out. Back in the 70s, and even back in the 50s, which was when James Dean was active, normal people wanted to look, well, I guess normal, while the bodybuilders of the day wanted to look like Greek statues or like Superman. Today, it is normal people that want to look like Superman. And in principle, everyone sufficiently committed can look like Superman, meaning our stars are borderline expected to do so. Taking things up a notch, modern-day bodybuilders, outdoing the average lot, now wants to look like the monster that Superman had to fight, but that's neither here nor there. Point is, if James Dean had lived today, when the measure of beauty and what we expect of our stars has shifted, you can rest assured he too would have been ripped. But Robert Pattinson doesn't want you to think about it enough to reach that conclusion, only enough that you build an association between him and James Dean. And both Pattinson himself, his agency, and Warner are all keen on you cementing the association between Robert Pattinson and James Dean. Because that way, you will get over the association between Robert Pattinson and sparkly vampire. And it's working. Think about it. How many times have you heard James Dean and Robert Pattinson mentioned in the same sentence this last week, even if it was by someone criticizing him? You will hear that association hammered in many, many more times before Tenet, let alone Batman, is out. I don't buy for a second this implied scenario that the studio wants Pattinson to bulk up, but that he decided he couldn't be asked. On the contrary, I think Matt Reeves' pick for Batman was never meant to have a muscular build. Robert Pattinson ultimately won the role of Batman, but do you know who he was competing against? Nicholas Hoult. He was the runner-up, and he would have gotten the role if things for one reason or another hadn't worked out with Pattinson. Both main contenders for the role of Matt Reeves' Batman has a build and overall appearance that deviates from, how do I put it, the masculine stereotype that Batman and Bruce Wayne have traditionally been portrayed as. This tells me that Matt Reeves was never going for someone who had the build and looks of Bruce Wayne from the comics. Matt Reeves' Batman was never going to be massive, or have traditionally masculine features for that matter, and anyone expecting that are in for disappointment. I think that is also a big part of the purpose behind this article. Controlling expectations, letting you know gently right now that this Batman won't look anything like Batman of the past. Following from that, I think Pattinson is doing what the studio tells him to do. The trick to maintaining any kind of physical condition is diet. Doesn't matter how much you hit the gym if you don't eat right, and Pattinson does eat what his trainer, and therefore the studio, tells him to. The GQ piece of marketing material reads, "I'm essentially on a meal plan for Batman. Thank God. I don't know what I'd be doing other than that. But I mean, yeah, other than, I can't survive. I'll have oatmeal with like vanilla protein powder on it." So, despite the lockdown, chances are Robert Pattinson will look exactly like director Matt Reeves wants him to look. Zoe Kravitz may have to work out 5 times a week, but Pattinson doesn't. And as the article makes clear, what Robert Pattinson lacks in physical prowess, he will make up for with acting ability. Since Twilight, Robert Pattinson has reshaped his image in the industry, taking on smaller, more serious roles that showcase his talent as an actor. You've heard this before, and you'll hear it again, because it's all part of the marketing campaign of reshaping his image in the eyes of the public. And that is indeed what this article is communicating. About Batman, which has been played so many times before, Pattinson says, "It's fun when more and more ground has been covered, like Where is the Gap? You've seen this sort of lighter version, you've seen a kind of jaded version, and a kind of more animalistic version. And the puzzle of it becomes quite satisfying, to think, where's my opening? And also, do I have anything inside me which would work if I could do it?" The article hammers in the point that while he might not look the part, while he might be so detached from worldly affairs that he can't even use a microwave without blowing it up, while he might come across as a weirdo, Robert Pattinson is a great auteur, and we are about to get a great actor's take on the role. A take designed to stand out from everything that has been done before. Throughout the interview, Robert Pattinson plays the role of a slightly aloof but great artist. Many have pointed out that Pattinson likes to troll people. In the GQ piece, the conversation turns to Tenet, which Pattinson isn't able to say anything much about, even the gist of the story. He rambles like someone whose mind is on more important things, and refers to his secretary, who he says is smarter than him because she went to college and stuff. The credited author of the article, and I emphasize that because Warner Marketing probably had a big uncredited part in shaping it, writes that. A few days later I call Christopher Nolan himself to ask if Pattinson was effing with me about not knowing the plot of the movie he had just finished. The interesting thing with Rob is, he's slightly effing with you, Nolan says, laughing a reserved English laugh, but he's also being disarmingly honest. It's sort of both things at once. When you see the film, you'll understand. Rob's read on the script was extremely acute, but he's also understood the ambiguities of the film and the possibilities that spin off in the mind around the story, and so both things are true. Yeah, he's effing with you. I think that is every bit as true for him not working out as well. He's effing with us all, provoking a reaction, provoking a discussion. A discussion in which he will be likened to James Dean, in which everyone will learn he is a great actor, and in which everyone will come to expect right now that he won't be buff. So the shock isn't so great when marketing rolls out for real. And those, I believe, are the real purposes of this article, which likely has been crafted in unison by GQ, Warner Marketing, and Robert Pattinson's representatives. Let's all recognize this for the piece of marketing material that it is. As for me, my feelings about Robert Pattinson as Batman and Matt Reeves as the director have not changed. That is to say, I remain unconvinced. Let me know how excited you are for Robert Pattinson's take on Batman in the comments.